Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining. We'll get started here in about 2 minutes and introduce the all-new UltiMaker S7. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ryan Singler. I'm joined by our CTO, Miguel Calvo, to introduce the new UltiMaker S7. Now, as you go through the presentation, feel free to put your questions into the question box here in the webinar. We will be able to answer those questions at the end. We do have some help monitoring those on the back end. But for now, I guess let's jump in, get to the agenda. All right, so first, I'm going to take everyone through a little bit of the history of the S5 platform, sort of that growth, and then I'll be handing it over to Miguel, where he'll go through the new S7 and all of the new systems improvements, including our integrated error manager filter, heated and flexible build plate, upgraded print head, and then our Cura materials and compatibility. And then finally, we'll be able to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. All right, so first, how do we get here? So as we look at our UltiMaker 3D Printing Sentiment Index, we see a really extensive adoption of 3D printing across multiple applications. So the obvious one being prototyping. I think that's the first place 3D printing really had a stronghold. About 79% of those polled were using their printers for prototyping, with about 83% really kind of already bought into that idea that it's great for bringing new ideas to life. The next most popular area being production tools. From there, about 72% of users are actively producing those tools, with about 77% seeing that it is definitely a more effective and impactful way to design a lot of those jigs and fixtures that are used throughout an assembly line. Then the final part here is end-use parts. About 50% of users are using their 3D printers to create something that's going to be going to a customer. The really cool part is that 72% see the ability to effectively run small batch production. So people are happy enough with their prototypes that they see the performance as capable of going to kind of that small volume run of parts as well. So really strong adoption throughout the industry. And we believe a big part of that is the UltiMaker S5. Ultimately, you need the hardware that's going to build that confidence in your users and really help drive 3D printing adoption. As you all know, the S5, really an award-winning printer, starting with some of those features down at the bottom, we'll work our way up. Interactive touch panel, now that's kind of a standard, but has not always been kind of among the leaders there. Active bed leveling, getting that first layer right is huge in 3D printing success, and we were able to really improve that there. And then swappable print cores with dual extruders. As we've grown, as we've added more materials, we've added more print cores, we've added the capability of the S5 to continue to print the most in-demand materials. And finally, large build volume. Having the space to create parts for any application is huge. Being able to regulate that print volume and sort of effectively produce parts has really helped drive adoption. So then as we look at the increased value over time for our customers, we've been continuously working on the S line since its launch. So back in 2018, the S5 came out and really had pretty revolutionary at the time. We're up to 12 material partners, 12 materials from 5 different partners, really that open ecosystem that everyone now today expects. Next came the Air Manager and the Material Station. So really able to unlock more production capabilities, able to make sure that we're maintaining air quality in any lab, really, again, building on the platform. Then as we move into 2020, I would say this is where the platform really started to come together to a full ecosystem and solution with our UltiMaker platform software, and then our UltiMaker 3D Printing Academy, being able to help get you started, help with different sorts of education on just the 3D printing process as a whole. Continuing on, as we've grown our materials further and further, we had the need for our CC print course, where you're going to be able to print composites. It's going to be a much more rugged print core to be able to stand up to those sorts of materials. And then PETG, a really great material, kind of really excellent for chemical resistance, good stiffness, good for functional prototyping. And then finally, most recently, 2022, a couple of really big updates. First, Cura 5, huge step forward in slicing power. If you're not using Cura 5, you're missing out. Definitely start today, if possible. Really awesome improvement to Slicer that Miguel will get into some other fun details later. And then the metal expansion kit. So with that, we are sort of the most holistic solution for 3D printing on a desktop 3D printer. And where available, ceramic supports are supported on the S5 line in that metal expansion kit. And then finally, just to bring it back to that materials ecosystem, last time I gave you a number was back in 2018, we started with 12. We're over 270, 280-ish materials now in the materials partner program. So continuing to grow. If you have a need, we have the material that's going to help fit that bill. So then if you look at what all that adds up to, today, it's about 20 to 30% faster for print on the S5 than at launch. And that's largely due to just those continued improvements in Cura, continued toolpathing improvements. 23 times more material selection. So again, whatever you're looking for in the 3D printing space, we probably have something that's going to help along those lines. Then 37 plus firmware releases. That means this printer has never stopped improving. We are committed to any UltiMaker is going to continue to improve throughout the lifetime of the machine. And with all of these features, we've managed to ship to over 70 countries. So it is a globally utilized platform. And with that, we've seen that translate into all different areas of industry. So when you think visual and functional prototyping, we're seeing in architecture, seeing in consumer goods all over the place. So Killa Design is a great example here, doing different architectural models. Next, manufacturing jigs and fixtures. You can see a Ford Focus emblem being placed on the back of a car here. That's a substantially sized fixture that is being used at automotive volumes in production. So this is something standing up to the rigors of everyday manufacturing in an automotive facility. And then finally, end-use parts. Zeiss is actually creating different part holding fixtures that go with their electron microscopes. So, pick a scale. There's a use for 3D printing within that industry. All right, and with all of those updates, ultimately what we built is a full platform that will help enable your success with UltiMaker. So kind of going around clockwise from the 3D printers, our goals are always to be reliable, easy to use, and safe 3D printers are going to show their ROI quickly. You combine that with UltiMaker's Cura, the #1 slicer out there, remote control, leading IT security. With that, any material out there, it's probably on the platform at this point. Again, over 270 materials that you'll have the option to select from. And then the knowledge solutions and the support. We have the ability to help you learn to design your 3D parts, help utilize the system, and we have global localized support with that knowledge base to help in your journey. And so with that, I am going to hand it over to Miguel, who's going to be able to take us through all of the improvements that are tucked into the new UltiMaker S7.
Thanks, Ryan, and hello, everybody, in whatever part of the world that you're in. I'm here today in the UltiMaker prototyping lab. We've set up a printer and some things to show and tell as I take you through the great new features and functions of the UltiMaker S7. Let me just start top to bottom with a quick overview, and then we'll go into a bit more detail. So starting from the top, you'll notice the printer's a lot taller. We've seen such great traction of the Air Manager that we've integrated the Air Manager into the device. It's the same great filtration system, but now fully integrated, allowing us to improve the build volume temperature control and some other things that I'll come on to. The extra height gives us a new location of a new higher quality camera with a much better viewing angle. We have a single door now, as opposed to the saloon style doors, and I'll get into why that's important in a moment. The printhead has some great updates. We have improved connectivity with a new Wi-Fi card with 5 gigahertz compatibility, a great new flexible build plate. I'll spend a bit of time going through that later. And the same great integrated touch screen as Ryan mentioned earlier. You know, it was quite novel and revolutionary when we brought it out in 2018. Since then, and with those 37 firmware updates, plus and more to come, the user experience using that touch panel has only improved. So moving on to looking at a bit of the detail, and we'll start at the top of the machine. So we have the same great integrated filter fan module as was available as an add-on to the UltiMaker S5. The filter is EPA rated, and independent tests show that it removes 95% of ultrafine particles from every print. So now that that module is actually integrated into the unit, it also gives us a much more consistent and better control of the build volume temperature. Why is that? Well, we have different materials and fewer seals, and the hood that we have that works very, very well at filtration of particles, but it does let a little bit of heat out. And of course, this door, and maybe we can enlarge my camera so that you can see it, having this one single door really does improve the airflow through the machine. Now on the S5, you know, we have an enclosed build volume. When you put the Air Manager on, the system is designed to draw air in through the front. There's a gap around the door. It's there for a reason. It draws air in the front. It gets heated by the build plate. It transitions up through the machine, gets filtered and pumped out the back. Now, if you're building a big part, and maybe apart from a material that's prone to warping, having that door in the middle with the gap as designed did allow cold air into the build chamber, and actually could cause a little bit of warping of those sensitive materials. Think ABS, think polycarbonate. With this single door, we've managed the airflow in a different way through the machine, and it does mean that we actually can increase the control of the build temperature, which reduces warping and gives us better dimensional accuracy. So we can go back to the slide. The other great thing, of course, with this integrated Air Manager is the new location for the camera that's here in the top corner. And overall, you know, it gives us a much better functionality out of the machine. So the main things about the integrated filtration system: single glass door, integrated HEPA filter, that means EPA filter, sorry, which means that for everybody buying an S7, they can be confident that they're removing those particulates and keeping a much better temperature control inside of the build volume. Moving on to the flex plate. I have one here. People have asked me since I joined the business, where's the UltiMaker flex plate? Well, the answer is here it is. It's a great, great update to the UltiMaker platform. We've spent a lot of time working with our suppliers to deliver a plate that not only gives you a great user experience for removing parts, but also removes the need for glue entirely from all UltiMaker materials, reducing the amount of time it takes to start a new print and to break down a printer and get it ready to start with a new one. So it's a great PEI coated build plate. It magnets onto the build stack. And again, maybe we can transition to the video so I can take you through some of the great advancements of the build stack. So here is a prototype version of the build stack, and we've made quite a few changes to this. And in conjunction with the changes in the print head, we've also improved the experience of leveling, but I'll come on to that. What you'll notice at the top of the build stack is this very large, thick aluminium plate. It's got some magnets embedded in it with a really optimized location to make that experience of putting the plate on and taking it off as satisfying as it's possible to be. But the main function of this plate is actually to better spread the heat around the build plate. Adhesion is very sensitive to temperature. We want, during the printing process, the polymer to stick to the build plate, but when the part cools down, we want it to pop right off. This build plate spreads the heat across the build surface much more evenly, much more precisely. And what that means is that if you've got multiple small objects on the build plate or one large object on the build plate, you can be sure that you'll have great adhesion with no warping and no chance of the part coming off. And again, all of this without glue. Another great thing you will notice is there are no thumb screws on the back of the build plate or indeed on the bottom as it's installed. This machine, with the updates to the print head that will come back to you, is fully self-leveling and has a new build plate tilt compensation algorithm, which means that you no longer have any manual calibration at all of the build platform. And let's see what the experience is like actually using the flex plate. So here's a print. Oh, there you go. Well, I just took it off the bed and the print actually popped right off with the action of taking it off the bed. I do have another print because I thought that might happen. I had another print that we were a bit more careful. So this is a tough PLA print that's on the build plate, and I'm just going to give it a flex and off it comes. As simple as that. When you finish, you can see that this build plate has no glue on it. We're ready to print again. I can just pop it in the device. It's now in place. I can start the next print. No more washing of glue, no more scraping. The parts pop right off, straight back in the machine, and your machine is printing again.
That's awesome, Miguel. And I just had a couple of little questions there just to clarify. As we look at that no glue, how does that expand out into sort of the partner materials offering? You know, I think I'm assuming a lot of them are going to be able to keep the same no glue type of an approach.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've tested this build plate extensively with UltiMaker materials, and every single UltiMaker material can be run without glue. But actually, we do test with polymer types. So whilst what you'll see in the marketplace on Cura, you'll see advice to use glue that's actually for the traditional build stack, the glass build plate. I would advise anybody that buys an UltiMaker S7 to actually try a print without. We're very confident in this build surface. It's not just the material, it's the processing and preparation of the build plate that make that surface really great for build plate adhesion. And I would suggest that you try a print without glue. There may be some materials at the edges of the spectrum that would require glue. Some specialist glues from some of our material partners in the ecosystem, but I'd be very confident the vast majority of third-party materials could also be printed on the build plate without using any adhesion products at all.
That's great. And the other thing that really stood out to me, when you combine that really evenly heated build plate, the great adhesion, and the improved thermal control, that's got to do a lot for reliability, even, you know, large parts, small parts, just again, all these things adding up into just a more easy to use, reliable experience.
Absolutely. And, you know, when our team, we have rather many of these running in our labs, when our team has been using the printers for more than a few days, you know, the difference in the experience of just knowing you can start a print and walk away. You know, us users of FDM printing, they've been doing this for many years, as I have, as the engineers have here. I think we all know that first layer is so important that we often stand there and watch the machine. With this machine, you have the confidence in the adhesion that actually it becomes second nature to just walk away.
Awesome. And we are getting this question a lot, so I'll just get it now before we move on. Size of the build plate, exact same as the S5?
It's the same as S5, so it's 330 by 240 by 300 mils. So it's exactly the same build volume as the S5.
Awesome.
Cool. So as we said, just to summarize, if we flip to the next one, we have a Z stage or a Z stage that's pre-calibrated with a brand new algorithm I'll talk about in a moment that actually compensates for bed tilt, no more thumb screws. We have this brand new flexible and magnetic build plate, which it's such fun to use. It's the user experience is great. Parts pop right off. They stick great when we're printing. And a wide range of materials you can print without the use of glue, reducing the touch time required to get print started and to finish off a print and get the machine ready for the next print. So moving to the print head, the first bullet here is hidden. You'll not see it. In fact, the print head looks very similar because, of course, it is an upgrade of the existing print head that we have in the S5. But the upgrades we've made are pretty significant. So the first one is we've switched out the technology that we use for the bed leveling procedure. So we used to have a capacitive sensor. We've now replaced that with an inductive sensor. What does that mean? Well, the electronic noise on the signal is vastly reduced. That makes the sensor more accurate. We can measure in single-digit microns, and it makes it more reliable. And that means that when we're probing the flex build plate, not only does it have those great adhesion and release characteristics, but we now can keep the nozzle much more consistently separated from the build plate to make sure that first layer goes down perfectly. In conjunction with a new algorithm running on top of the bed leveling algorithm that is included in the S5, we also have this bed tilt compensation, which allowed us to get rid of the thumb screws. If you could just, skip back to the prior slide. Another update is on the fan bracket. Now, long-term users of UltiMakers will know that there is a failure mode for machines that are maybe a bit older, that the holding of the fan bracket does reduce a bit with time. We've strengthened the magnets that hold the fan bracket closed, and we've added a sensor in there as well. What that sensor does is takes probably one of the most annoying or frustrating failures that can happen on FDM printers. If you do start printing spaghetti, and it's happened to us all, on an UltiMaker machine in the past, it was possible for material to pull up inside the print head and actually catastrophically fail your print head. We've eliminated that failure mode. The fan bracket now has a presence sensor. If the fan bracket's open, you can't start a print. So if you're changing your cores and you forget to close the fan bracket, the printer's got your back. It won't start until you go and close the fan bracket door. But also during a print, if that door pops open for whatever reason, the machine will stop the print, and we've completely eliminated the possibility to fail your print head. And then a really subtle change, but a really important change, we've actually modified the molding at the front of the print head to reverse the fan, modify the flow path of air, and it means that no longer, if you've got a pro bundle, when you purge into the sides of the machine, or if you have some wisps of some stringing, if you're using some more exotic materials, that can happen. It used to be a failure mode that they could get sucked into the fan and cause the fan to fail. By reversing that fan, we've actually eliminated that failure mode as well. So the new printhead is more accurate at probing, and it has two advantages, or two new built-in protections to stop two of the more common failure modes, making this machine the most robust and reliable machine we've made to date. So to summarize on the printhead, inductive sensor, we have the dual extrusion that everyone knows and loves from UltiMaker, but now with flood protection and an improved fan bracket design, and the reversal of the fan, meaning that we've removed that failure mode of drawing in small slithers of filament that could cause failure. So we're very conscious that we don't really just sell printers. What we're giving users is access to a platform. As Ryan mentioned earlier, the way to get the best out of an UltiMaker machine is to pair it with those great materials in our ecosystem, to utilize the incredible features and functions in UltiMaker Cura. The release of 5.0 really was revolutionary, reducing print times, improving the detail that you can get out, Really fantastic release. And by the way, sneak peek, there's a new release of Cura coming. I'll mention a little bit later, with some fantastic new functions that you won't have seen before. Something that we should really sort of make sure everyone knows is that the S7 is fully compatible with all of your files that you already have in the Digital Factory. What does that mean? It means if you've sliced parts for the S5, you don't need to reopen the model, reslice it to be able to print it on the S7. The S7 will print anything that has been sliced for the S5 completely seamlessly. It's fully backwards compatible. So we're not expecting users to have to go and reslice their files to use the new machine. And then I mentioned earlier about the new webcam, that it's mounted higher with a higher resolution. And I want to just show you a little demo that I recorded on Friday to show you actually the impact that such a seemingly insignificant change can make when you're managing either one or a fleet of printers utilizing Digital Factory. So if I can ask Andrea to run the video, please.
I just wanted to give you a brief demo of some of the great updates we've made recently to UltiMaker Digital Factory, the benefits of the new camera of the S7. So here we are logged into to Digital Factory. We're on the My Printers page. There are other areas and other functionalities that I won't go into today. Just one thing I will show you, if I collapse this sidebar with the new iconography, you know, it's still super simple to navigate to all those different areas of Digital Factory, whilst giving yourself maximum real estate to be able to view your printers or print jobs, etc. So a colleague of mine in the verification and validation team has triggered some prints for me this morning so that I can demo the great update to the printer page. So I'm going to take this printer in the top right here. This is a verification and validation machine. It's an UltiMaker S5. As you can see, it's currently printing with approximately 2 hours left of the print. It's printing a print job that's a retry. For that reason, there's not an image displayed because the printer is actually accessing a prior job and triggering the print again. And if I click on that tile, we'll get into the brand new printer information page. So on the left-hand side, you can see a tile that gives you the current status of the machine. You have the camera feed in the top left here. You have some information about the ongoing print, you know, how much time is left, the ability to pause or abort a job. If you hover over the completion circle, you can see the total print time. And at the bottom here, a bit of information about the job. On the right-hand side, you've got a vision of what's coming. So the queue, or indeed what's waiting. Now, this printer doesn't have any jobs queued for it after the completion of the current job, but also what jobs have gone before it. And if you notice here, there's a little drop down arrow. If I click on that, you can see that this print, which was streamed from the cloud today at 9:43, it was aborted at 10:24, showing you some functionality. It's 63 grams of material. You have an ability to write a note here for an operator or another user. This job was streamed from the library. Really neat that you can click here and go directly to the digital library, to the project that this print job came from. And then if you're using the latest version of Cura, we've now integrated with the Cura team some of the print job parameters directly into Digital Factory, so you can see some of the data about the job. So in this case, the job was sliced in Cura 5.2.1 using the default fast profile, which has a layer height of 0.2, an infill density of 20%. It is not using support material, and the adhesion brim is turned on. So a really great advancement of knowledge about the print job, showing there both in the history and in the queue as well. If there was a job in the queue, you'd be able to see it. Now, of course, we gave the ability in the past that this job that was in the history, you can indeed click on this job and pick a printer that's set up with the right materials to be able to reprint. So yeah, from anywhere in the history of this machine, you can pick a job and then send it to either this machine or another machine in order to reprint. Really great functionality there. I'm just going to go back to the printer page and take this printer that's next door, which is printing the same job via USB, but this is an UltiMaker S7. If I click on this tile, you can see there's a bit more information available about this printer. It is an S7, so it's an integrated air manager. Clicking here will give you the status of the filter, and of course will notify you when that filter needs replacing, but it will also show you the status of the material station. So in this case, 4 materials routed to core 1, which is an AA.4, 1 material routed to core 2, which is a BB 0.4. You can see there's actually a warning here. It's described at the bottom, the material's not compatible with the loaded print core, and there's even a hyperlink to the material compatibility chart, so you can solve the problem yourself, pick a core that is compatible, and clear that error. Given that the material station has 6 bays, there's 1 bay empty in this machine right now. But if I focus on the big change or the big development for the S7, it's this image that again is streaming at about 1 frame per 10 seconds. And I think you can immediately see the benefit of the new higher definition camera and the location of the camera high up in the top of the Air Manager, giving you the ability to see the entire print surface. And that's from the first layer all the way to the last layer, giving you much more confidence that the print's going well. You can see every aspect of the print. And, if you do spot something that doesn't look quite right, you have more confidence to hit that pause button if you then want to walk away and go and have a look at the printer, or even abort the print job. So, this new camera with higher definition and a much better angle really does give you so much more feedback by being able to see the entire printed area and make that judgment as to how the print is performing.
Great. So I thought it was really important to show some of those great updates in Digital Factory alongside the launch of the S7. Working together, it really is the next level of confidence in what your prints, what's happening with your prints. So it's a fantastic system. At that point, I'm going to stop talking and open it up to questions. I know Ryan's been keeping up with them, so maybe we can start answering some of those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had a number coming in. We're going to try to get through as many as we can. I think some of them were repetitive, so hopefully we'll move through them quickly. But starting at the top, is this 110 or 220 volt connection or either? And if 220 is possible, will it heat up faster?
The heating element is the same, and the power is the same as the S5. So no, there's no appreciable improvement in time, but the plate achieves a much more consistent temperature. So obviously it's better for printing. But no, we haven't made change to the electronics to actually heat the build plate. We've just made sure that the output of those heaters is better for printing.
All right. The next question is around sort of a specific material, but I think some of the reasoning is pretty applicable to a lot of users. Someone intends to purchase a printer to print PVDF, which does run hot and can warp upon cooling. So the big part of the question is the flexible build plate a problem for this type of warping, or would a glass or metal plate to be used with the S7 work as well?
So I'd have to admit that the material experts on the other side of that wall will know much more about that material than I do. It's not one that I have experience with. The flexible build plate has been designed with this very optimized pattern of 25 magnets underneath it. And we've tested it with the highest warping materials from our own materials that are UltiMaker materials, as well as some from the marketplace. And we're very confident that with that optimized magnet spread, that warping and causing the build plate to move shouldn't be a problem. But again, I'm not super experienced with that material, but I'm sure someone around here will be. Really happy to answer that question offline, having talked to some of our material experts.
Yeah, all right. So then next one that I'm seeing is when will the ceramic support be available for metal in the US? And I don't believe we have an answer to that one yet, but just
No,
wanted
we're working very closely with our ecosystem partner BASF. In different regions in the world, of course, there's different legislature, and we're just working really closely with BASF to make sure that we can bring that kit to the US. Unfortunately, right now, I don't have a date, a target date when that will be completed, apart from we're just working closely with them. Of course, for users in Europe, it's already on the market, and we've had some great feedback, and we really do want to bring that to the US. But yeah, we just have to jump through those hoops, and we'll keep you updated via the resellers and our channel partners.
Yes, I know we are anxiously awaiting being able to try it out here in the Americas headquarters, so you'll find out quickly when we do. Let's see, on to the next one. Are there any significant speed improvements right away with the S7 over the S5? My inclination is it's going to be largely firmware tuning, but I'll let you expand on that.
Yeah, so actually all the advantages when it comes to the printed output from the motion stage. So of course we've changed adhesion, we've improved the leveling. So the output from the S7 will be the best that UltiMaker's ever made with regards to tolerance and all those things. When it comes to the productivity improvements that we've made since the launch of the S5, everything that we've done for S7 will actually come to S5 as well. We're pushing what we can into the firmware of S5. So look out for every firmware update that comes, even in your S5, we'll be pushing the performance of that machine as well. There is no very specific print time improvements that we've built in for the S7. We're working across the S line. Whenever we bring improvements, they come across the whole of the S line. So you'll see those as they come with the Cura advancements, the print profile advancements, and some of the things that we do in the firmware that improve the productivity of the machine.
All right, awesome. So then next one I'm seeing is, obviously we work to sort of reduce some of the maintenance needed. Do we know kind of what those improvements would look like? Is there going to be a significant, what the rough cost would be yearly?
For maintaining the machine, I don't think it will change too much. The build plates are very robust. They're double-sided, just like our glass plates. This one is a development plate that's been used rather a lot by the team here at UltiMaker. It's very difficult to give you, for example, a life cycle estimate for something like this build plate when any number of materials could be printed on it and it could be used for so many different things. They are, a replaceable, or you can buy extra ones if you want to improve productivity. But as with the glass build plate, these things are replaceable and should be, cycled as and when they start to wear out. But giving you a life cycle estimate on the build plate is very difficult because every user has a different life cycle, right? And then the rest of the machine, it's working very similarly as the S5. We chose very specifically to take the S5 and improve in the areas that we knew our users would really appreciate the movement. So the leveling, the adhesion, the extra sensors, etc. But we didn't need to do too much on the platform with regards to the base technology of the motion system. The print cores are the same print cores that you use on the S5. Why? It's already, in my opinion, the most reliable machine on the market that you can have confidence in. And so we didn't need to do too much in other areas of the machine. So actually life with the S7 will be very similar to life with the S5. Apart from not having to clean off that glue, having the ability to pop those prints off, and having that extra level of security on the first level.
Awesome. And then I know we touched on the build plate dimensions before, but we do have a number of people just wanting to confirm the build dimensions overall. No change again compared to the S5, correct? I don't know.
No change.
Off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's 330 mil in X, 240 in Y, and 300 in Z.
All right, perfect. And then with the integrated air manager, can we print ABS and similar materials in a working office space safely?
So, with the air manager, we do filter out ultra fine particles, but there are other emissions from printers. I would suggest that in the location that you are, you look up the specific rules of what is and isn't allowed inside of office environments. The machine is designed to be used in office, but there are some materials that give off more, for example, VOCs, and depending on where you are in the world, the local regulations can be slightly different. So, for example, we have very large print farms here at UltiMaker headquarters, and of course, we actually have external extraction because of the very large number of printers that we have. But if you walk through the door here into our offices, we also, a lot of our engineers have a machine sat beside them whilst they're printing. But we do monitor VOCs in our offices. It's something we do as a matter of course. So again, I would check the locality of where you are, what the rules are, and it will vary from location to location. Some materials will give off VOCs, and I think it's a really good idea to talk to your health and safety expert in your company to make sure that you're meeting the requirements in your local geography.
Yeah, absolutely. We unfortunately don't know every regulation, but here the next one is an interesting one. So we've gotten a few different questions, all relating back to backwards compatibility of any of the hardware upgrades from the S7 versus the S5. Will those be backwards compatible as well, or just the prepared print files and those sorts of things?
Yeah, so the print files are backwards compatible. The hardware, there's quite a change in the, if I take the whole of the build plate stack again, this is a quite large assembly, and switching this out, and of course it has slightly different controls as well, is really rather a big job. It's kind of heart surgery for the machine. And the same on the print head, there's new sensors and different updates inside of the print head. So right now, we're not bringing those to the S5. The S5 keeps its build plate and its build stack with glass and the print head that it has. We are looking at the situation, but as I say, it's a very difficult job to actually try to retrofit these newer technologies into the S5. So right now, if you want those functionalities, the S7 is what you'll need. Having said that, the S5 remains on the market. It's still a great machine, and it's still available to buy as it is.
Awesome. The next question is around the texture of the build plate. Could you describe just a little bit of that texture? I think a lot of people are used to kind of that shiny glass texture. So
sure. So this build plate is PEI coated, but it has a proprietary finish that we've developed in conjunction with the supplier that helps with the adhesion and release. So it is a slightly matte surface. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see that on the camera. What it means is an old UltiMaker prints, you had a very glossy bottom surface. And if you're printing with, I don't know, a carbon filled material, for example, that has sort of a bit more of a matte finish, or if you're buying, some of our ecosystem partner materials that are matte finish, there was a bit of a difference between the glossy surface and the rest of the printed surface. This build plate, if I take a part that's cracked off it, doesn't have the glossy surface. It's going to be very hard to see. It's actually much more consistent with the rest of the printed file. It's a very lightly textured matte surface.
yeah, I've seen them. It definitely is a much more uniform appearing part the whole way through with that new texture. It looks really good on finished parts. So we do have a few more questions too around the material feeders and spool holders. Any changes here, or basically the same drive system from the S5?
No, it's the same system from the S5, and of course the Pro bundle will be offered with the S7. So, if you want to have that hassle-free switch over between materials without having to go around the back and changing out materials, of course the S7 can be made into a Pro bundle with a material station sitting underneath. So in standalone configuration, it's the same spool holder with RFID, so it automatically detects the material if it's an UltiMaker material, and the feeders are exactly the same. And then again, if you choose to, you can make it a Pro bundle with the addition of the material station.
Okay, awesome. And we do have a few people asking about filament diameters as well. 2.85 millimeter is maintained through the S7, correct?
That is correct, yes. So all of the S line carry 2.85 filaments and will continue to do so.
All right, awesome. Let's see, a number more coming in. How about cleaning the PEI surface if you do need to use glue or anything like that? Is there a recommended way to clean before your next print?
Indeed. So this surface has been developed to not be used with water, and it actually tells you on the plate. You won't be able to read that here, but it does say don't use with water, clean with IPA if required. So you can use isopropyl alcohol to clean the surface. It comes up really nicely, and in the case that you do have to use an adhesion product, but you know what, we find we don't need to these days. So cleaning the plate is a job of the past.
Yes, I think many people will be relieved by that. And the next one is around calibration. So are the nozzles heated during calibration, and do we see any damage to the build plate from that heat?
So it is still hot probing on the plate. So it's the same type of probing, although we use a different algorithm and of course those new sensors. So the plate is put into contact with the nozzle. Over time, you know, you can see a very light witness. Again, this is a heavily used plate from R&D. If I catch the light right, you might be able to just see the probing locations. It's a visual witness only. It's not a damage to the plate at all, but you will see that 40mm grid just where the probe, well, the print core comes down and touches the plate, but it doesn't damage the plate at all. And again, you know, they function for a very nice life cycle without any damage from probing.
Okay, awesome. Next one is a really good question. Can you tell us a little bit about how the bed is automatically tilted and leveled as we kind of go through that process?
Yeah, sure. It's oh, I could get my geek on about this for a long while, but I'll try and do it very quickly and simplify it. So on an S5, we have a very nice, very flat, very specific grade of glass made for us, so that we start with a, you know, as flat as can be made in glass plate. And when we probe, what we actually do is create a mesh of the surface. And during the first 10mm, let's say, of print, the printer is actually live moving the Z stage to keep the clearance between the nozzle and the build plate constant to help with that adhesion. You know, it's actually a lot more advanced than you might think, and it's not the same way that a lot of other FDM companies do it. So the whole time you're printing in that first 10mm, the Z stage is live, actually compensating, allowing the nozzle to build plate clearance to be the same. Now, over that first 10mm, we actually post-process the G-code in the machine. So the machine is making those corrections itself until we flatten out the print, and we're then printing perpendicular to the theoretical Z plane. That's a lot of jargon, but so any amount of unflatness gets evened out over the first 10mm, and then we print perpendicular. With the S7, with the better accuracy and this new bed tilt compensation, what we actually do is keep the Z stage live the whole time. So the whole time that you're printing, we no longer transition to printing perpendicular to the theoretical Z stage. We're actually printing perpendicular to the true measured bed. So it doesn't matter whether the bed has started out life, you know, some microns tilted. We will always be printing perpendicular to the plate that we measured. That is a subtle change, but it is a change. And if you have the measuring equipment that we have here, you would have noticed in the past that the top layer and the bottom layer of a print on an S5 on the very tiny scale aren't parallel. They're perfectly parallel on an S7.
Awesome, and great job not going too technical, but just enough for all of us nerds in the audience. I was definitely riveted. Last one more question on the print cores. They're the same across the S5 to the S7, right? Everything is still compatible?
Yes, absolutely. And you know, as we have done over the years, you know, we will supplement and bring, you know, more print cores as and when required to the market. So yes, all the print cores are the same. You can use the same print core in S7 and then put it into an S5 and it will work perfectly well.
Okay, awesome. Another one around first layer of a print being support material. So similar to the way that Stratasys sets it up, you know, the kind of a support raft. Is that supported, or do support materials adhere to the PEI plate? To try that if you wanted to.
The support materials do adhere to the PEI plate. So UltiMaker Breakaway, UltiMaker PVA, they adhere perfectly well to the plate. Cura is such an amazing piece of software that will allow you to do anything you want. If you want to build a raft from a different material and put your model on top of that, of course Cura makes that possible. So there's every setting you can imagine under the sun in Cura. So if you wanted to work like that, you could. But yeah, the support products do adhere to the build plate like the model materials. So there's no need to build a raft, but if you choose to want to build your model that way, of course you'll find a way in Cura to do that.
All right, awesome. And then so for a longer print job, does the heat have any effect on the performance of the magnets over time, or does that stay consistent no matter, quick small parts, or you're talking a full build volume kind of a part?
No, indeed, a lot of development work was done into the holding of the build plate, and we're very confident. We've picked the right materials for the magnets and the right materials for the build plate to ensure that we have more than the minimum retention force required to ensure that that build plate doesn't move at all, no matter how long your print job. And we typically in our R&D, we have plenty of prints that last many numbers of days for our validation purposes, and the build plate is super secure, stays where it needs to be, and does a really great job.
All right, great. Now we do have a number of pricing questions. I know it varies across different markets, but do we have, I guess, broad, high level where the pricing would start here?
Oh, blimey, I should probably have come prepared for that, and I'm not. It's the S7 is the top machine in our range with the integrated air manager. Of course, you can imagine there's a gap between the S5 and the S7. What I would say is the S5 is live on our resellers and partners' websites right now. So have a look in your territory. You should be able to find pricing information very easily.
Yes, absolutely, definitely readily available with the partners. And then for the build plate, are there suggested materials that we know work best for adhesion, or will work with all certified materials? Has come up a few times. My thought is if the material is a polymer similar to an UltiMaker model material, you're very, very likely to have success. But would you be able to confirm, deny, or expand on that?
That would be my guidance. So, UltiMaker's materials have been developed with our materials partners to work absolutely the best on UltiMaker products. So our composition of, PLA, tough PLA, ABS, nylon, etc., may not be exactly the same composition as you'd buy from a third-party material. However, broadly, I would say that you're absolutely right, Ryan. If you're trying a PLA or a tough PLA or, a nylon composite, say, then yes, if there's a material that's similar to the same family of polymer in the UltiMaker range, I would suggest trying printing it without glue. Absolutely. There's a ton of exotic materials in our marketplace. I would suggest trying it as well, even if you don't see a similar material, but start with just a small puck, on the edge of the build plate, and just try printing it and see what happens. You'll know very quickly if it adheres or not to the build plate.
Yeah, absolutely. And then are there any UI changes to the touchscreen based compared to the S5, or will it be the same experience for a user?
Right now, it's the same experience, as I'm sure those that had an S5 for some time know. When we dropped firmware 7.0 last year, we made a big overhaul on the UI. Changing the screens, making the feedback to the user much more obvious. And we don't stop, as you mentioned earlier, Ryan, 37 firmware releases since the launch of the S5, and we still have quite a few, in our backlog waiting to drop. So we will continue sort of the march of improving users' experience through the touchscreen. The S7 does have some new, I guess it is better in as much as it does have some new wizards, some updated feedback and help. So what you'll notice if you're setting up for a print and for any reason, if the material loading doesn't go well, the printer will step into a workflow with better iconography and photography that will help you recover the print rather than just cancelling the print. So there are some workflow improvements built in, but the UE elements are the same as the S5. We didn't see the need to actually change them grossly for the S7 because our user feedback was, it works, it's clear, it's pretty good. So the improvements we made in the S7 are more about the workflows, if something does go wrong, helping the user get back on track and printing as soon as possible.
Absolutely. And I think we're getting towards the end of the questions. I don't see too many new ones coming in, except for is this available in the US today? Yes, it's available through our Restart network. And that queues up perfectly. Anyone who would like to speak to a sales representative, speak to their partner, feel free to fill out this poll that we have up on the screen. We'll be able to reach out to you. And any additional questions, we will be able to reach out. Maybe we missed some. There were a lot that came in. But with that, any closing thoughts, Miguel?
No, I think it's been great to be with you all today to show the S7. I did just want to drop a little shout out to my colleagues in Cura. I'm holding in my hand a really exciting model that you won't be able to see very well, but it's green and there's a little black living hinge in it. This is a print of PLA and TPU. PLA and TPU don't stick very well to each other, and yet here's a little snappy crocodile that works, and I can't actually pull it apart. Really great new feature dropping in Cura 5.3. I believe it's Friday. Tune into it because actually it's a fantastic new feature. The team have done a great job in developing it, and I think it's going to open up some new applications for our users. So watch this space.
All right, awesome. Yeah, so I think that's about it. We do have a quick time lapse that we might be able to play of the S7 actually printing apart, since that's not too time friendly for a webinar. But thank you to everyone for joining, and again, feel free to reach out to your UltiMaker partner.